My name's Emi Howell. I'm the writer, producer and director of Nazanin's story, and I first heard about the story. I'd actually never heard about Nazanin, but I came home Christmas 2016 and my mum said, you have to read this story, you have to follow this story.
We've been campaigning for a long time, and Emi got in touch with me, and in fact her mum had been following our story, and her sister had come along to an event as well. And I met her one day and she said, I started acting and I'd quite like to write a play. And I was at the stage where kind of we'd try anything.
It's so horrendous, this story, that it could be fiction, which I think is why the leap to turning it into a play wasn't really so huge for me. But obviously something I wanted to do was make sure that Richard Ratcliffe was on board with me turning it into a theatre piece, and I felt that with having his support it would make everything so much easier and so much more realistic. So
we did add a long chat, maybe for an hour, just talk through the different things, and then she went away. And basically what she did was she took things off the blog. We have a petition where I put updates on, and she found a couple of interviews and then came back and built a play.
The only thing he had was, obviously he wanted to see the play just to check there was nothing in there that would be dangerous to Nazanin.
I didn't see any more until I came along to see them having rehearsed it, and I came down. In fact, there was a journalist who come down to watch as well, and it was just really quite spellbinding.
Our government has never once criticised Iran's treatment of Nazanin.
You're not her mummy anymore. How could you be, when it's your mum who looks after her, teaches her, feeds her, sings her to sleep at night?
And where were you?
We did it in front of Richard, and that's when I first met him. And before that, I'd seen him on the news and I'd looked up all his interviews and everything. But I hadn't seen him in person. And once I saw him in person, I saw the mannerisms he had and the way he spoke. And that ultimately changed the way I portrayed him.
From watching one rehearsal, he then booked the week off work and came to Edinburgh with us and saw pretty much every single one of the performances up in Edinburgh and spoke after every performance. He's come into every rehearsal since then. He's seen as many plays as he can. He's been fantastic.
Why are you here?
To visit my family.
Who do you work for?
The Thomson Reuters Foundation.
What is your name?
Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe.
Why are you here?
To visit my family.
Who do you work for?
What have you done with my daughter?
So it was very hard to watch the whole thing the first time, and in some ways it was easier for me to cope by offering criticism about that's not right, rather than actually just feel it and watch it. So seeing it for the first time, full performance with all my family there, was tough for all of us.
We've definitely had a new script every different time that we've gone on a set of performances. We've got people coming tonight to the Apple Cuts performance that saw the play the first time just before we took it to Edinburgh. The script's changed quite considerably as we've learnt new things.
Mr. Ratcliffe, is it true what they're saying about Nazanin? Did you know?
What are you talking about? What's going on?
You haven't heard.
Heard what? What is this? I don't understand.
She's being accused of plotting a soft overthrow of the Islamic Republic.
Well, I had no idea how important an audience is, and that's what gives theatre its sort of unique magic almost, that it's a shared experience of people who are coming together and telling our story, listening to our story, empathising and building that sort of common empathy. And there's no other way we could have done that.
Our trip to Iran when you were 22 months old was one of no return. The past 14 months, my share of you has been the occasional hour in the visiting room at Evin Prison. How young you are to go through such a horrible experience, and yet you have grown. Despite all of our efforts, you have grown enough to know where I am. And that's what you tell the other mothers in the park when they ask you where your mother is. In prison, you tell them as though it is normal.
Being able to portray her character meant that a lot of research and talking to Richard and listening to the news stories and reading about the news stories, they all did really help me in preparing for her character.
I've been told to inform you by the prosecutor's office that you are eligible for furlough.
I don't understand.
You've served a sixth of your sentence. You are therefore eligible for temporary release for a few days to see your daughter. That is, of course, reliant on your good behaviour until that point.
Of course.
So Nazanin knows that this play exists. She knows that people have taken the time to write it. She knows that people have taken the time to come and see it, and that people recognise her story when they come and see it and emotionally share with it. That's profoundly important for her, knowing she's not alone in that prison cell. For the other women in that prison cell, knowing that actually there's someone out there who's watching what you bastards are doing.
Nazanin Zaghari, a new case has been opened against you at the insistence of the Revolutionary Guards. The new charges include colluding with and receiving money from organizations working to overthrow the Islamic Republic and attending a demonstration outside the Iranian embassy in London, of which we have photographic evidence.
The last court case, she was forced to sign a confession under duress without knowing the charges against her. Now, the Revolutionary Guards are inventing new charges to prevent her early release.
How do you respond?
I reject all charges. I have always been honest with them about what I have done and who I have worked for. I wasn't trying to overthrow the regime. I love my country.
I find theatre incredibly powerful in telling Nazanin's story because people connect and people want to help afterwards, and that's kind of what we want to do with this tour, with this performance, is to get people involved and make them say, and help them say, what can we do? How can we help?
Nazanin Zaghari, you will be required to attend court on the 10th of December for your newest case. You may inform your family.
On the 9th and 10th of December, Boris Johnson travelled to Iran where he met with Mr Zarif and called for the release of mother-of-one Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe on humanitarian grounds. Richard Ratcliffe called it a worthwhile visit with encouraging developments, though a source tells us he has been asked not to speak with the press about Mr Johnson's visit.
If you're advocating in Parliament, it's the political stuff you often go to, but that's not what people care about. It's not what any of us care about. It's, you know, the fact that this is a mum not being able to see her baby and the baby growing up and all these horrible stuff happening, and how sad that is.
But now I'm waiting in limbo for the news that she's been released. And it's more of a case of when, not if. I hope.
So now faith, hope and love abide, these three. But the greatest of these is love.
It's obviously quite a moving piece and quite a powerful piece. And I'd like to think that we do get that across to our audience.
I should inform you that although the British government have agreed to pay the arms deal debt, there is still a dispute over the interest rate owed.
And that is why you were kept a mother and baby hostage.
That money is Iran's right.
You can get them in there with you and they can see what's actually happening if they invest in it. But that's our job, to make them invest in it. And hopefully it's worked.
Every day since Christmas, I've had to find a new milestone for Nazanin to aim for. Every day it's a struggle to keep her from going on hunger strike.
Not only will they see the full story instead of just an article that they'll read, they see everything, but they're more emotionally open and they're ready to receive.
Let me go home so I can have another baby like we'd always planned. Let my daughter grow up with siblings, with a father and a mother.
It captures something about our story that you can't do in a 2-minute interview, you can't do in a talk. What you get to see is what it's like to be Nazanin and to some extent what it's like to be me.